Thank you so much, Alexander, for being here with us. And thank you for your insights at the India EU Forum. What do you see in Europe today? I mean, what is Europe today as opposed to the Europe of, say, a decade ago? Things have happened in the last decade. How much have they actually changed Europe?
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. And it's thrilling to be at the forum. And I have to say, it's a great success. And congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Um, well, very interesting question because this is something that keeps me busy actually, and have kept me best busy also during my time in the Austrian government. Um, a lot has been going on. We were living through a time in the last 3 decades in Europe where we thought we had everything sorted out.
Hmm.
After the fall of the Iron Curtain, the Europeans actually believed that Francis Fukuyama is right. We
Right.
have reached the end of
End of
history.
history.
We have reached the perfect state of post-nationalism and post-historic paradise. And you could say we have been kicked out of this paradise.
Hmm.
We have been kicked out of our comfort zone, where the Europeans mostly believed that they knew their future. They thought it would always go on, and our problems will be decarbonization, waste management, and LGBTIQ plus. I'm sorry for being drastic, but I want
That's
to make
fine.
the point, and I don't want to give the impression it's not important. But
That's
uh, we have been going around the planet preaching to everybody else, very self-righteous, and then thinking we will never be touched by pandemics. This is something which happens in Asia, Africa, but not with us. War, definitely never. Conflicts, no. And suddenly everything is back. History is back. We are back in history. Holidays from history are over.
yeah.
And that is actually the big historic challenge we are living through, intellectual, emotional challenge, which creates an enormous sense of insecurity and fear. Also explaining the rise of populism and populist parties in Europe, because I believe the human brain is only capable of adapting to a certain degree of uncertainty. If it
Mm.
reaches a certain level, um, then you trying to you hide in your igloo and
That's right.
try to shut out
Mm.
the outer world, and you look for easy
Mm.
answers. And that is probably the biggest political, intellectual, and emotional challenge.
Mm.
I sometimes say in my speeches in Europe that I fear that Europe is becoming or has become the continent of the doomsday sayers. If you look at public debates, podiums, media, everything is, you have the feeling this is something, a continent abandoning itself,
That's right.
which is very wrong,
Mm.
because we have the Russian trolls and bots, we have the Chinese trolls and bots telling us, yes, yes, you are failing, democracy is failing, Europe is failing, and we shouldn't give in to that. I have sometimes a feeling following the public debates in Europe that I hear the laughter coming out of Beijing and Moscow,
Mm.
because the European intellectuals are doing half of the job.
Yeah, sometimes we feel the same here. The only difference, and I'm curious how you look at this, is is this sense of insecurity, is it uniform across demographic groups? I mean, there is a younger generation which may not have felt what you felt at the end of history.
I believe there are different forms of insecurity. Yes, we are an aging continent,
Mm.
and people have become cozy, and
Mm.
they thought that this will remain.
Mm.
The situation we had
Mm.
will remain. I believe for younger people, they have fears, but different, in the sense, what will be the retirement system when
Mm-hmm.
I will retire in 30 years?
Mm.
Can I make a living? Will I find a job? These kind of things. So for them, I believe it's the economy stupid to cite Bill
Mm.
Clinton.
Mm.
For other people, it's the global insecurity, war is back. And if you take Austria, for instance, if you sit in Vienna, the capital of Austria, Ukraine, the border of Ukraine is only 500 kilometers
Yeah.
away. It's closer to Vienna than the westernmost
Mm.
province of Austria, and Austria is not definitely a big country.
That's right.
So actually everything is around the corner.
Mm.
The Middle East is 1.5 flying hours away. So North Africa is around the corner. We don't have the luxury of having, like the Americans, oceans, either the Pacific or Atlantic Ocean, separating us from the crisis regions. We are neighbors. They have a ring of fire surrounding Europe. If you take Ukraine, Southern Caucasus, Middle East, and the putsch belt, you could say, the coup d'etat belt in Africa. So I understand that people are sort of more aware, but I believe the odds are still on our side. We are one of the richest continents on this planet. We have half a billion people, nearly half a billion people. We are one of the most attractive markets. A huge amount of brain power. If you look at what patents are done by European scientists, maybe not in Europe, maybe not at European universities, but still Europeans. So there are many things which, for me, indicate that the odds are on our side. We are a lot stronger and more resilient than we thought. And each time a crisis comes up, think about the pandemic or the Russian war of aggression in Ukraine with the whole energy issue. Austria, for instance, was 80% dependent on Russian gas. Nobody believed us that we can get out of it without having, havoc, creating havoc for our industry, but we did. So it's like with human beings. If you have suddenly a challenge, can be health, can be something else, then you grow with the challenge, and so do we. And I'm very optimistic that Europe will still be about and strong in 150 years. And
That's
that's why I'm all the more excited about the free trade agreement we have signed.
my next question. And the free trade agreement, I hear the sort of palpable excitement because it's so much more than a free trade agreement. I mean, my personal experience, I mean, I've been following the negotiations for the last almost 20 years, and just the fact that we actually crossed the finish line is quite amazing. To me, the I mean, we talk about the complementarity of the two systems, of the two continents, and India is a bit of a subcontinent, but I also see that there are areas where we may need to work a lot more. For instance, say mobility of people. I mean, it with America it was easy. There's an H-1B visa, which is basically a professional visa. You go, you work, you make a lot of money, you may or may not stay on. With Europe, there is the added challenge, at least in the last 10 years, of illegal migration, which sometimes, for want of a better word, contaminates the legal pathways. I was wondering if you had any thoughts about this, and how do you think we both can sort of get around it?
Yeah, I believe the foreign trade agreement is like a ray of hope, of
Yes,
a light at the end of the tunnel,
indeed.
because it shows that actually, and here again, uh, the a geostrategic thinking has been kicking
That's right.
in Delhi, in Paris, in Brussels, in Vienna, everywhere. And now negotiations like those are not done by number crunchers,
No,
but they will still be done by experts, but with the understanding we have to get a deal.
that's right.
And that's the big difference. So you could say, if you want to be cynical, thank you, Mr. Putin, thank you, Mr. Trump. But obviously, it was a value added per se. On the question of mobility, that is something I've been talking a lot actually with the Foreign Minister Jai Shankar while I was in office, because we were affected in 2000.
17, 18.
Yeah, not only that, we were affected by illegal Indian immigration in
Yes.
22. They came to Belgrade, seemingly searching a job,
And
and then
then
they
cross
disappeared,
to.
and suddenly they were in Austria applying for asylum, which was for us a surprise because India is not a country which, in our mind, creates illegal migrants, but they were actually economic migrants. And we made a deal at the time and had an agreement where we agreed that we would curb illegal immigration and make legal migration easier. Because, as with any Western European country, we need skilled workers.
Sure.
We are an aging society, and but strangely enough, India does not, in the Austrian public mind, figure in this respect. We have Filipinos, for instance, in the health business, Vietnamese more. We have many people in Austria, especially from the southeastern Europe, like from Bosnia Herzegovina, Serbia, or Ukraine. But I believe there's a huge potential. And you're pointing to something that is absolutely right, the contamination of this issue and the abuse sometimes of this issue of necessary legal migration into our labor markets by populist party who throw everything into one basket and simply say we don't want more foreigners.
That's
And
right.
that is a proper phenomena you have in the US, by the way, because
Yes,
you pointed
right
to
now.
US, you have it right
Yeah,
now as well.
absolutely.
And I believe it is up to us politicians or us who opinion leaders, if I may say so, to continuously point to the big difference, because Austrian industries are crying out for skilled workers.
Indeed. If you had to, I mean, if you had to put your government hat back on, and you were advising both the European and Union and Indian government, and you're very familiar with both, and what would you say should be the priorities? Like the top three things we should focus on to give the momentum that it is needed to put this deal on the ground.
I would say I would try to have a multi-layered approach. First of all, we need institutions. We need uh, university, city to city, scientist to scientist contacts. If I look, for instance, the relationship between Austria and Israel, that made it actually irreversible. If you
Yes.
have institutions and NGOs, civil society, universities, science working together. And I believe there's a lot here that can be done between Europe and India. Then for me, and I might be surprising for you, is culture. I believe one of the important things, especially, okay, I have a soft spot for India, I might add. I grew up here, and
How was that? How did that happen?
my father was Austrian ambassador in India in the
Oh, really?
70s.
So
So
you were
I did,
right around the corner.
absolutely, it
Oh,
was Aurangzeb Road at the time,
okay,
the
oh,
old
it was
embassy,
the old orange.
and that was in the 70s. So
Yes.
I'm already that old.
So we
Indira Gandhi was at the
it
time
was oh
prime
wow,
minister.
yeah,
So it was a different world, and
indeed.
very much so different India as well.
Oh yeah.
But you can still recognize it. And so I think, and if I say culture, I say people to people contacts. I say tourism. I say I would love to have a Taj Mahal or Oberoi. Sorry, not I'm not doing
The hotel. Yes,
a
I know.
hotel, an Indian hotel in Vienna,
Yeah.
five-star hotel,
Yeah.
luxury hotel. I would love to have more cultural exchanges, fostering people to people exchanges. Then, obviously, where you say mobility, but that is something you can hardly force. You can invite, and we did that, for instance, in Vietnam. That's interesting. Austrian institutions who build up, kind of mini universities in Vietnam, teaching the language, because this is always the biggest barrier,
Of course.
and the necessities of what you need to know, the knowledge, and then bringing these, hundreds of people who go through these courses every year to Austria to work. So that would be, for instance, something where, say, you can build a bedrock, so that even if you wanted to, you cannot unwind it anymore, because we are so intertwined.
Yes.
Meanwhile,
No,
and that should be our goal.
no. I think Indian tourists have now been to Europe more than to pretty much
Yeah.
any other part of the world.
And you have a boosting middle class, which is
Yes.
interesting from many
Yes.
aspects.
Yes.
And I believe the more this takes place, and the more young business people say, I will spend 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years in Europe, build something up, come back to India, and vice versa, the better. Because governments might change, but these
But
kind of
these things
relationships, they're
endure,
lasting.
indeed.
And I want lasting relationships, a
That's right.
lasting friendship.
That's right, and I mean, we look at it as well in a different way because we're a very young demographic, but at least the rising prosperity in the last few years has meant, I used to see Indians traveling out to Southeast Asia, to Vietnam, to Philippines, to Thailand for their vacations. Everybody goes to Europe. I mean, every European embassy is burdened from February because our summer vacations are before yours.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody is lining up for
So
tourist
I can only
visas.
use this to say, come to Austria, come to Vienna, beautiful.
I, you know, I was there the first time I was there, I took my little daughter to the House of Music.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I have not seen anything so spectacular.
No, that is. Somebody said today you cannot have soft power without hard power. Well, we Austrians since the 19th century have started to have a lot of soft
Soft
power.
power, yes.
You're going to classical music, opera, whatever, you
Yes.
will not be able to avoid Austria.
No, no.
This is our forte, you might
Yes.
say. But I believe this is an area where we have a lot to gain from each other. I would like to
Yes.
see more Europeans visiting India, more Indians visiting Europe. It might be professionally, it might be as tourists, more exchange, and I believe we Europeans have a lot to learn from India, because when I talked at the beginning about being kicked out of a comfort zone, you were never in a comfort zone.
Yeah, nobody ever gave us comfort.
You never had that, and I believe, and I myself, for instance, profited a lot. And you might know that the very close and often exchanges I had with Jaishankar, your
Yes.
brilliant foreign minister, it was for me so challenging and so entertaining and so fruitful to have this very different view.
Yes.
And we Europeans tend to see the world in black and white.
Hmm.
Either you're with us or against us. And that's the biggest geostrategic mistake. It started with Ukraine, Israel, Gaza, and all the other issues. And I believe you have to be able to open yourself, to get out of your echo chamber, to listen to others. And I believe the Indian view can be extremely profitable for us to listen to you guys,
Yes.
uh, and to learn from you. And this is for me probably the biggest gain of this two continents moving closer
Yeah.
to each other.
Yeah, we do this. We do a forum with the Americans as well, and often it seems like a lot of the hard power attributes are there with in that forum. A lot of the softer attributes, a lot of the softer thoughts, I think, permeate a European sensibility, which is interesting because the world is very difficult at this point. But thank you so
Yeah.
much. For being with us, and
Thank you for having me.
we'd like to have you back.
I will be back again in 3 weeks' time for the
Yes,
Nicena dialogue, if I
that's
may
right.
mention this here. This,
No, you may.
and I'm excited and thrilled
Mm.
because I would like to do myself even a lot more with India, not only because of my personal affinity to this country, because I believe, and that's interesting, European business people, also in Austria, are looking for alternatives.
Yeah.
We're looking for new markets, and especially, you have to diversify. They have been getting used to exporting to producing in China, exporting to the US, and now they have to think twice. And I believe India is one of the most interesting options. And I believe there's also an economic potential, enormous economic potential there.
Well, I mean, thank God for Trump for putting those sanctions on tariffs on us, because there was a lot of Indian businesses only focused on exporting to America.
Yeah.
And now they're looking at different parts of the world. So it was interesting, an interesting metric, which was said that the Trump tariffs would sort of shave off 1% of the Indian GDP. Last week, the figures were 0.3, which meant that the diversification is already happening.
Yeah.
So,
And then again, it's a sign we are a lot more, we are stronger and more resilient than we believe.
that's right.
And the pandemic has
That's
showed
right.
it.
That's right.
And now the uncertainties we face now, and we have as opinion leaders or politicians have to accompany and make life easier for those who are actually making our lives possible, and that's the economy. But I'm thrilled to be back, and I believe that there's a bright future, many opportunities here.
I'm so glad, and we'd love to have you back. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.